I thought I'd do a bit of a sort of fill-in video really prior to me doing my next major video, which will be on a review, sort of demo, the XRGB3, which I've just recently did an unpacking video for. As part of that process where I've been going through doing various testing for that particular scaler, I decided to pull out my Neo Geo hardware, get my words out, my Neo Geo hardware. I don't play the consoles that much, I've got to be honest. I spend, well, not that I spend a lot of time, but I will spend more time playing stuff on MVS for my arcade cabinets. But I thought I'd just go through the console stuff purely because I've dragged this out of the garage. I thought while I was dragging it out to do some testing with my XRGB3, I thought I'd do a video of my consoles because I'll probably never get them out again. So let's start off with the original version of the console, which was the Neo Geo AES, which stood for Advanced Entertainment System. I'm just reading this off the front of the console. I always remember when these came out, they were absolutely mind-blowing at the time, they really were. I mean, the console itself, the AES came out in about 1990. I don't think it was long after that I actually bought one, and it was an absolute horrendous price. I bought it second hand off a guy that I used to know who used to deal in all sorts of stuff, and it's the guy that I bought most of my gaming consoles off at the time. And I can't think for the life of me how much I paid for this. It was astronomical, I know. I mean, something around about £400 or something like that. It was an absolute, it was a beast. It was an absolute beast. It was the only console that you could buy at the time that had games on it that were actually arcade games. You know, this was an arcade machine for the home. It was absolutely outstanding, and everything about the console was just big, massive, overstated. The size of the console itself was huge. It's not big by today's standards, but certainly the cartridges it took are just absolutely humongous. And I'm not sure I've actually got a Super Nintendo cartridge around. I was going to hold it up, but anyway. Now the machine that I've got, that's the Neo Geo AES, and it is massive. I mean most of you guys would have known about this and probably own one anyway, but for the people that haven't, that's the AES, and that's my iPhone. So, you know, that just puts it into perspective really. The size of the console, it is absolutely humongous, it really is. Now, this is one of the early consoles. It's a very, very early machine. Serial number on it is 1110. So it is an extremely early machine, and I've had this, well, since the early 90s. I mean, like I said, I may have even got this the same year it came out, or the year after perhaps. I can't quite remember, but I know that I've had it years and years and years. And it's starting to get a little bit battered now. It's got a few marks on it. I haven't got the box for it, unfortunately, but you know, I don't really play that much. But it is in good condition, but it's got a couple of marks on the front. It's not what I would call mint, but it is in good condition. Now, one of the big things about these was that Neo Geo, sorry, SNK, stuck to using cartridge formats, and most of you will probably know that inside a cartridge it's basically a PCB with a load of chips on there, a load of ROM chips, and the ones for the Neo Geo are absolutely huge. Not purely because they wanted to make a big cartridge, a look big, but because of the amount of chips that were available to actually stick on the boards themselves, because the games were pretty meaty in their day. SNK used the descriptor for their sort of gaming size in megabits. So they weren't megabytes, they were megabits. And I'm just actually looking at some information on a wiki. Towards the end of the console's life, the cartridge size went up to something over 700 megabits, which sounds absolutely huge, doesn't it? But when you actually realise that there's 8 bits to a byte, so you take that divided by 8 will actually give you the number of megabytes. It actually calculates out at 89 megabytes, which by today's standard is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. But hence why the cartridges were so big. I suppose because of the actual, because of the size, the physical size of the ROM chips, and because of the capabilities of the machine of what they can actually do. And I suspect they made sort of changes to the cartridges anyway as the actual platform evolved. I suspect that the chips got smaller so they could actually fit more in there, or they could fit actually more code on the chips themselves. They became more efficient, sort of as regards to the design, etc. But I suppose if I get a cartridge out. Now again, that cartridge probably on its own, it doesn't, but we put it next to an iPhone again, and they are absolutely huge. I mean, they really are massive cartridges. And plugging the cartridge in, it's it's just absolutely massive. It really is. Now, the Neo Geo, it was predominantly a platform for fighters. So if you're into your beat 'em ups, this certainly was the console to get. And I suppose in reality now, if you're still a beat 'em up fan, then Neo Geo or SNK probably released more fighters, more 2D fighters than perhaps any other manufacturer. I suspect they probably released more than Capcom. I'm not sure about that. I don't know about that, but they've certainly, there's over 100 cartridges available for the Neo Geo. And like I said, predominantly they are beat 'em ups. There are a few shoot 'em ups for the console, and they are fairly good shoot 'em ups. But predominantly it's for beat 'em up fans. So if you want a console that's got a lot of beat 'em ups, this is definitely the console to get. Now, one of the reasons why I suspect the SNK Neo Geo cartridge-based console didn't do, I wouldn't say it didn't do well, because it did do well, but it wasn't mass produced. It wasn't a humongously produced console. One of the reasons for that, I suspect, was down to the price of the actual cartridges. Not only were you paying at the time, and the console did get a PAL release. I forgot how much they were on the PAL, but if you were talking, I don't know, say 400 quid for the console, that was as bad as what actually some of the cartridges cost. Retail price, they were going for sort of over £500, I think, £500–600 for some of the later releases, and it was absolutely crazy money. It was absolutely crazy money. I can't even believe that I even bought one of these consoles, to be honest. At the time, I mean, the games now are a lot cheaper, but some of the rarer games still fetch a lot of cash. But it's quite astronomical that they sort of, as in SNK, actually had to cheat to release that for the home market, and I'm actually surprised they sold as many as they did. But it was it was always classed as a top end console, sort of daddy sort of console. But it's something great to have. I'd never get rid of it. I'd never get rid of it, purely from a nostalgic point of view, really. You know. Now, something else about the console, not only was the console big, and not only were the cartridges big, but also the joypad. And again, I haven't got something like a Super Nintendo or Saturn joypad. No, I'll leave that there for a moment. This is the Neo Geo joypad, or not joypad, joystick. Look at the size of that mofo. Oh, it's a proper arcade type joystick. You know, you got a nice directional micro switched stick, and you got your buttons. Absolutely bang on for fighting games. It plays really well with this. I mean, it's a really nice joystick. It is. So it really was an awesome system, and I always remember when I went out, I'd gone around with friends' house and he put it on, and he said, "You got to look at this. This is like the bollocks. This is." And he put it, and I was like, "Wow, this is like unbelievable. This is." You know, because at the time we were talking Super Nintendo, and while Super Nintendo was good, this just blew it away. I mean, the sound quality was great, and it was just awesome. You know, it's proper speech on the games, because obviously the amount of code they could store on the ROM chips. It was just absolutely amazing. Something else I've got for my Neo Geo is memory card. She's there. Now, I think these are quite rare nowadays, the memory cards. I'm not actually sure how much they can retail for now, but you don't seem to see them much, or I haven't seen many of them available on eBay and places like that. So I don't know if they're mega rare, or I've just been looking at the wrong times. But I've got a memory card for that, and that goes into the front of the slot there. Stick the memory card in. Of course, you can save your game saves on there. Now, I could be wrong here, but I may be right in saying that in the arcade machines, so the arcade version of these, you could actually stick your memory card in, or I'm not just talking out my arse. I'm pretty sure you could stick your memory card in the arcade machine and come home and play it, the same game, and obviously carry on from your saves. Now, something they didn't have, certainly on these versions, is actual stereo out audio out of the AV connector. It was actually mono, which is a bit of a blow. So what people did is that they made up various cables for these devices. That, in fact, this one here. So I've got a SCART cable here. So this is a Neo Geo SCART cable, actually wired and configured as exactly the same as a Mega Drive. So if you've got a Mega Drive one and you want to buy one of these consoles, you can plug it straight in and it'll work. And whoever actually built this has spliced into it a breakout cable for an audio jack. So of course you can plug that sort of in the front of the console. So there's the front. You've got your pad or joystick ports at the front, and you've got your headphone socket, and there you've got a volume slider as well, so you can turn it up and turn it down. So that's how people got around that. I'm pretty sure you can actually modify the board as well, I think, to output stereo, or to actually output stereo through the plug at the back. But you know, now obviously because this is a Japanese version, you've got to have a step down with it, etc. Now, so before I go to my next console, it's probably worth stating actually, for anyone that's thinking of buying one of these now, we're getting into the Neo Geo scene, you need to be aware that these consoles give out a weird sync frequency. Whilst it will work great on a CRT TV, tube or arcade monitor, and it looks absolutely fantastic on a CRT, and I would certainly recommend that if you're going to get one of these, you're going to have trouble of getting one of these, and try and pick up a CRT or use CRT, because they look absolutely awesome on those. But they can work with normal LCD screens or plasmas, etc. But, and I emphasise, can work. Now, because of the weird sync signal on these, is you get a bit of or you can get a jittery picture. It's not unplayable, but it don't look too great, I've got to be honest. And because of the quality of that as regards to sticking it to an LCD screen, and as I've touched on previous videos before, the inbuilt scalers on these LCDs and modern screens are crap really, and it doesn't look that great. You know, this console's meant for a display that can actually display low resolution really. You lose a lot of definition and everything, but you know, so just bear that in mind if you are looking for one or you're about to purchase one. There is a possibility it may not even work with your LCD. It could work fine, and we may get slightly jumpy picture, but you know, just so you're aware of that. But like I say, if you plug it into a CRT screen, you know, an old TV, it's got a SCART socket on it for RGB, or an arcade monitor that's low res, it'll look absolutely mint. It really will. So that's the Neo Geo AES. Now what SNK decided to do was, after about 4 years, to sort of reduce the production costs, and I suspect to actually increase their market of the console, was that they brought out a CD version of the same console. So it played the same games, but obviously they'd be on CD format. Now the actual console itself was a lot cheaper to produce, the games were so much more cheaper to produce, and it would work the same as a cartridge-based console, but everything would be served on a CD, which is obviously a lot cheaper media. You haven't got to pay for the chips or anything. So in 1994 they bought out, this isn't, I did actually bought that brand new, not this one here, but I did buy brand new an initial release Neo Geo CD based console, and the first ones that came out in Japan were actually front loaders. So they had a tray, you press the button, the tray came out, you put the disc in and then closed it. Those are the initial ones that came out, and they bought a second version out, and actually a third version. I've got the second version here, which is the top loader, and this was the one that was actually sold worldwide, and again I'm pretty sure they did a PAL release of this, and this was basically what was mass produced. You know, the price of the games were, you know, a hell of a lot cheaper. They weren't 400-500 quid, they were you know, down to the price of the games that you sort of pay for now, probably slightly dearer, but you know, 40-50 quid for a CD version of the previous cartridge-based version, and they're exactly the same. You couldn't tell them apart. So this here is the CD-based console, and this is one of the sort of later releases. So this is the top loader. So you press there, and obviously you stick your CD in there. Now obviously you know, because it didn't have the front loading mechanism on it, it was a lot cheaper to produce, and that's the reason why they did it. So you may be thinking, Christ, that's unbelievable. I can actually play the same games, you know, that were released in the arcade and released on the AES cartridge-based software, and it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper. Yes, absolutely, but there was one slight drawback of the CD-based console. For whatever reason, they chose to use a very, very, very low spec CD drive, and they're actually single speed CD drives. So it can take some time for the console to actually load the game into the RAM that's in the machine. Okay, you're not hanging around for minutes and minutes, but it could take anywhere between 30 seconds and a minute, I suppose, to load a game in. And of course, on fighting games, if you get through various stages, you've got to wait till it loads the next stage, and etc. I've got to be honest, it doesn't detract really from the gameplay at all. You know, you're not waiting around for hours for stuff to load. But obviously, this console itself opened this quality of gaming up to the masses really, and yeah, it's a nice console. And like I said, you know, you can pick both of these consoles up fairly cheaply. The AES is still higher price compared to the CD version. I think you've paid about £100 plus for the cartridge based version. But the CD based one, again, you know, you can get for, if you're lucky, 50-60 quid, you know, perhaps a bit cheaper. If you want some games, obviously you've got to pay for the games, but the games are readily available, and they are reasonably priced. Well, they're pretty cheap, to be honest. Now, something that the CD version was renowned for, let me scratch the games disc, was the joypads. And these were absolutely awesome joypads. They're probably the best joypads you could get for any console, really. It doesn't look much different to, you know, a normal joypad, apart from this baby. So this was a thumb-based joypad. So instead of your normal sort of 4-way operation that was out at the time, this is full 8-way. And it's fully micro switched, so it feels absolutely brilliant. It really does. Now the buttons, the actual punch, kick, fire buttons, whatever you want to call them, they weren't micro switched, but the actual joypad itself was. It just feels absolutely great. You can hear it clicking there. I mean, awesome bit of kit. Really nice. So for fighters, it's absolutely ideal. It really is. You know, you can pull off your moves quite easily with this type of joypad. It's very nice. Now again, the CD console is this one is the Japanese version. This doesn't seem anywhere near as sensitive on the sync as the cartridge-based AES is. So this works a lot better. I had some issues with the cartridge-based system and my new XRGB3. It's one of the renowned consoles that's fairly hard to sort with that, but again I can go into that in my other video that I do. But the CD version is a lot easier to work with. It's certainly more compatible than what the AES is with the screens that I've got and the scalers, etc. So yeah, that's just a very sort of brief overview of the two consoles that I've got as regards to the Neo Geo SNK stuff. You know, like I said, apart from the MVS stuff, which is my arcade stuff from my arcade machine. Yeah, if you've got any questions about the Neo Geo stuff, SNK stuff, you want to fire some comments through on the video, and I'll do my best to answer them. Speak to you again soon.